We're live. Brilliant. Okay, guys, welcome back to F1 Fanatics. We have just had the first qualifying of the F1 2020 season. Valtteri Bottas claims pole, and obviously I've seen a few people in chat already. Liam, I know, is a Ferrari fan. It was not a great day at the office for Ferrari. Ed, great to see you back in chat. I know you're a big McLaren fan, so Lando Norris getting P4, and was it Carlos Sainz in P6 as well? We'll have a run through quickly of the order. A really fantastic showing for McLaren, as well as those racing points. It looks like Ferrari on initial showing are the fifth fastest team, but Mercedes. Is there any real surprise that they've come out on top? Obviously, Valtteri Bottas getting P1 and Lewis Hamilton P2. Max Verstappen in P3, and very interesting actually on that front that he's the only one out of the top 10 who will start on that medium compound tomorrow. So will that strategy come in and actually help them overturn the Mercedes in the race? But over one lap pace, it does look the Mercedes are definitely taking over where they left off in 2019, and it is pretty scary to see. Fergus with the Understeer podcast as well. Lando, Ashley's back in chat. F1 is back, definitely. And we are back with our qualifying live stream. So that's fantastic to kind of be back and everything. SA Ferrari, my arse. Oh dear, Fergus he is not happy at all. Liam has changed to a McLaren fan officially. Oh, it is great to see your reaction. So how we usually do things on this qualifying live reaction, I'll go through the running order of what happened in qualifying. Then I will speak about my general thoughts qualifying, something to go through. And then obviously we'll have a chat in the discussion. I'll try and see if we can go along as well, what's in the comments, and kind of, have a discussion and chat about what we've just seen on track. How excited are we to kind of see F1 properly back? Qualifying is back, the first race tomorrow. And yeah, that was a really good qualifying session to have back. And I don't think Valtteri Bottas was many people's favourites to do that, but I suppose he was going to be in the quickest car. So somebody might have said it was a flipper coin. And Bottas is pretty strong at Austria, so it's no real surprise there. Hey, Matt D'Souza, thanks for coming on. This is a best chance for Bottas will get for a title, in my opinion. Completely agree. We'll come on to kind of discuss that later on. But the running order. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, although I'm pretty sure that a lot of you will do, is Valtteri Bottas claims pole position here with a 102.9. That is an absolute mega time. But Lewis Hamilton on his last lap got a 102.951. So literally 200ths of a second just splitting the two Mercedes drivers. So that was very close at the top end there. Max Verstappen was in P3 with Lando Norris in P4, so technically best of the rest, splitting the two Red Bulls. I think a lot of people expected it would be the racing points to split the Red Bulls, but a fantastic qualifying lap from Lando Norris. He only got one shot qualifying, which obviously people who follow us on Motorsport Manager we're a big fan of the one shot qualifying, and Lando absolutely nailed it. Alexander Albon in P5. Sergio Perez down in P6, Charles Leclerc P7, Carlos Sainz P8, Lance Stroll P9, and Daniel Ricciardo rounding off the top 10 with a P10. But his qualifying lap was affected by the yellow flag of Valtteri Bottas going off and wide during there. Daniel Ricciardo was obviously in the slipstream of Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton was unavoided, managed to avoid any consequences from that yellow flag, but Daniel Ricciardo did suffer from that. Outside of that, the big shock was, we saw that Ferrari's pace, we thought it was going to be poor, we thought it was going to be bad, but Sebastian Vettel went out in Q2 in P11. But obviously, that does in P11, if you are going to finish in Q2, P11 is a very good spot to kind of start in, because you get to start on the harder compound tyre, or you get free choice of compound tyre on there, and so you kind of dictate, and you can go for a slightly different strategy for the runners, and maybe can come into play later on. But looking at that Ferrari pace, I don't think they're going to be in any contention for a podium tomorrow. Pierre Gasly and Daniel Kvyat in the Alpha Tauris, they are in 12th and 13th. Esteban Ocon in P14th, and Roman Grosjean in P15th. Did well getting his Haas into Q2, because all Ferrari powered cars really looked poor this weekend. Ferrari had pace, they certainly didn't have pace. Rox, thanks for joining us in the chat there, Rox. And out in Q1 was Magnussen and Russell. They were both very close to making it through into Q2, but wasn't there. It was a really positive sign, actually, for Williams, because they were closer than they were last year. And they definitely have improved. And obviously, George Russell out on pace, out qualifying the two Alfa Romeos, who it looked a very sorry day at the office. Giovinazzi qualifying in P18 ahead of Kimi Raikkonen in P19. And Paul Nicholas Latifi, went out, crashed in FP3, didn't really kind of look on the pace. It's going to be a tough debut for him in Formula One. But that is the roundup of qualifying for you there, guys. My general thoughts are, I'm actually quite surprised that Racing Point, they look quick, and that Lando Norris was able to find a time quicker than them. But they definitely overall probably feel like the third quickest file. But McLaren and Racing Point are very close with each other, and certainly are going to have, it's obviously noted, I think Ferrari said that they're going to bring a change in philosophy and change of upgrades for Hungary. So don't expect anything really too much from them this weekend or next weekend. But certainly as we go into the first two races, and, we don't know how long the season's going to be, Racing Point and McLaren definitely have a really good shout here in potentially maybe fighting for podium places, which is fantastic for both those teams. Obviously, Racing Point will be Aston Martin going into new season. Max Verstappen's probably the real interesting one there. I think starting on that medium compound is going to be very interesting. He had to do two quick laps to kind of get the 1:04 flat. That was a safe time to get him into Q3 on that medium compound. But yeah, I think Red Bull needed to do something different, because Mercedes just absolutely look mega. They look supreme. But I suppose the big shock is well, or is it a big shock? Because Lewis Hamilton hasn't traditionally done well at Austria. It's always been one where his Mercedes teammates have done better. I think he's only won once there during the turbo hybrid era. Nico Rosberg won in 2014 and 15, and I'm pretty sure Valtteri Bottas won in 2017 before obviously Max has won the last couple of years. Lewis's only win coming in with that clash with Nico Rosberg at the top of turn 3 in 2016. So, yeah, I think you can't really see anything past Mercedes, can you, going into the race tomorrow? But I'll go and look in the chat now with you guys, obviously popping in there, and we'll just go from there. Is Ferrari a midfield team? I've seen that from Conan MM93LH44. I'm presuming you are a Lewis Hamilton fan on that. Ferrari, at the moment, I'm going to say for the first 2 weekends, definitely do look a midfield team, and they look slower, genuinely on pace. There didn't anything go wrong for Leclerc and Vettel. The car just was slow, and so crazy there. Great to see Josh Revel in chat. Racing pace point long pace run looked decent. Still backing Lance Boy for a podium. Of course you are. Obviously, Josh tweeted out, I think his podium was Lewis to win, or was it? No, it was Max to win, Lewis second, and Stroll to complete the podium. So I would assume Valtteri Bottas to have some problems in the race, or his mind went for a blank there for a moment. So, yeah, definitely an interesting one. Apex Motorsport boys in here. Bottas starts the season well and then fades away. Hey, could be. Obviously, Austria, we've said, is a strong track for Valtteri Bottas. So, look, if Valtteri Bottas is going to win a world title in Formula One, I think this is the make or break year. Obviously, you can't say anything in the long term or futures, but the Mercedes looks the best car. Lewis Hamilton, he's done it consistently for so many kind of years. But Bottas, he's now established. This is kind of, I think, his 4th year within the team. It's got to be his year if it's going to be a world championship for Valtteri Bottas. And his pace, certainly, qualifying has always been quite good. I think he was on a similar level to Lewis Hamilton qualifying last year. It's always been within a race that I struggle with Valtteri Bottas. So that start's going to be really important. Can Lewis Hamilton get ahead of him at the start? I think Valtteri Bottas needs to lead the first kind of section of the race to stand any chance of winning tomorrow. Ali F1, hey Ali F1, another kind of good young Apex Motorsport and Ali F1, both kind of good up and coming YouTube channels. So make sure you check them on. But thanks for coming in to chat. Ashley said Max Verstappen may lose places off the grid, though, with pace of the McLarens and Racing Points. Potentially. because the McLarens, especially last year, I think we saw it in the starts, were very good off the line. And obviously, Max Verstappen last year went from 2nd to 7th, wasn't it, off the start? So it was a real struggle for him. But it's more going, how long can Max Verstappen go on to those medium compounds and make him last, so that he has that quicker soft compound? I don't know whether it would be a 1-stop or a 2-stop going on later into the race for them. But yes, he certainly will be wanting to be on the softer compound in the latter part of the race, I'm imagining. Can't wait for a pay driver to beat both Ferraris. Liam is still kind of having a mini meltdown over the fact that Ferrari's pace is appalling, is the best way to do it. Rox, McLaren race pace this weekend isn't looking very good, though. No, correct. In the long runs, it doesn't look good, but that is practice. When lights go out tomorrow, things can be very different. In practice, on paper, it would look to me that the Racing Points would be fighting Max Verstappen and Alex Albon for that 3rd podium position. I think unless there is any mechanical issues or any incidents, I think both Mercedes will finish on the podium. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. The McLaren's qualifying pace was good. Lando, obviously, last year beating Carlos Sainz in qualifying for his natural pace. Yeah, he was always going to do better in qualifying, but he did finish P6 last year. He does clearly feel very comfortable around the Austria circuit. So I think Norris is definitely one to look out for tomorrow. Hamza Asat, thank you for joining the track. The track seemed off by a couple of tenths today compared to 2019. It did. Obviously, you've got to remember that they haven't had any racing on there, where usually by this time the Grand Prix comes. I think they've had a few other series races on the Austria track to date. So that makes, I think Christian Horner was talking about the track being very green in practice yesterday, which means, it was a little bit slippy. And obviously you saw Max pushing the limits yesterday and spinning quite a few times as well. The Racing Point is long stint seemed like the 3rd quickest car. I think Perez will beat Norris and Albon on a race pace. I think so. Just because I think Perez has very good race management, and now that he's got the car beneath him, whenever he gets a sniff of a good opportunity, I can definitely see Perez finishing in P4, if not challenging for a podium if there are any issues further up the field. TGSF1 in the chat. Welcome, Ollie. Another great YouTube channel as well coming in. A McLaren fan, so massively happy. And I think Lando is your favourite driver. So Lando Norris qualifying in P4 is a big one for you. And taking over the chat there, we're saying Lando repeatedly in lots of different forms, getting very excited on there. Who disappointed you most today? I think I was very disappointed by Alfa Romeo's pace. I think Alfa looked very, very poor. They looked like they'd gone backwards where Williams had gone forwards. In terms of, I think you're disappointed that Ferrari aren't on the pace, because that's another team that aren't challenging. Because as much as Racing Point and McLaren have the pace, they're not going to be able to have the resources to challenge Mercedes over the course of a full season. So with Ferrari basically cocking up their design for the car, they're the massive disappointment for me, because it puts all the onus and pressure on Red Bull to try and chase down and beat Mercedes, which is going to be a pretty difficult task, as Mercedes, again, like I've said many times in this stream already, they kind of look like a team that are just kind of picking up where they left off from the 2019 season. It might be, hopefully we can get a title battle between Hamilton and Bottas to the end at the very least. Someone said that Hamilton was a hypocritical because... Right, so basically, on that, a quick point, obviously, that was a thing on Twitter with Mercedes having links to Nazis during World War II. We'll try and stick to the racing, but basically that's a load of tosh, because if you go back in any company's history, you're going to find pretty dubious links. You can't change the past, you can only change the present and the future. And Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes are definitely trying to be on a positive influence for the future. Ollie's had a beer or two, apologising for what he goes. Hi, Sam O'Gara. How are you feeling about Roman Grosjean? Obviously in P15, qualifying ahead of Kevin Magnussen. Sorry about that one, Katie. But yeah, I'm guessing this will be the last season for both Vettel and Raikkonen. If Alfa Romeo's pace is that poor, I can't imagine Kimi Raikkonen hanging around because, yeah, I think he loves racing, but he doesn't want to be kind of doing what Robert Kubica was doing at the back end. So Robert Kubica as a test driver seems to have gone from one team at the back to another team going from there. Unfortunately, it may be the end of Alfa Romeo's sponsorship as well, because I can't imagine they'll want to be kind of branding that if they seriously don't pick up. Hi, Nico is pondering. Thanks for coming on. Did a Austrian preview with Nico on his channel as well. So if you got time, make sure you check that out. And I think I did say that the Alfa Romeos were going to be the best Alphas this season. That's looking a little bit stupid as things stands, but we can see it's a long season, or not as it stands with 8 races, but we'll see where it goes on that front. Ash, we are in for an interesting season. We don't know how many races we'll get after the Europe stint at the moment, so every point's going to be as low as possible. Yeah, I think that's why I had a late change to my fantasy team. I went kind of gun-ho on Mercedes because, well, realistically, yeah, like you said, you don't know how many races there are going to be, so you can't really afford to kind of play the waiting game on Ferrari that they might finally get their act together. Grosjean beating K-Mag, Sam looks very happy about that. I think Hamza is, I think Ricciardo is looking impressive. Didn't manage to hook up a good lap in Q3, but he seems to get 110% out the car. Now, I think Ricciardo is actually a very interesting one there because his lap at the end, I said that when I did my kind of quali run through, that his lap was affected by Valtteri Bottas going off on the final laps. He was affected by the yellow flags. I think he put a radio message that was very to the point, shall we say, in there. But I think that Renault is deceptively quite quick. So definitely watch out for Daniel Ricciardo. I wouldn't rule out him in that Renault getting a serious point and challenging those McLarens and Racing Points in the race. But it's going to be 2:30 a.m. in New Zealand. Time for a coffee to survive the F2 race. Cheering on Danny Boy. Mr. Dan Tickton redemption story. Would be very interested to do that. I certainly will be catching up with the F2 later. I've got it on recording just while we've got this live stream going. Swaroop Chili coming in with disaster Ferrari. Absolutely. Prakar Patel, hopefully I've said that right, confirm that, says hi, obviously been a recent commenter on the channel, so thank you for joining in on the live stream. Good to see you in chat. Yeah, Sam O'Gara predicted Lance Stroll on pole. That didn't quite work, but the Racing Points, that's probably one of the main big things actually on this. The Racing Points are actually as quick as what they looked in testing. So, yeah, that's pretty scary to see. Well, I know obviously there's a lot of controversy around Racing Point direct replica of the Mercedes 2019 season, but it isn't. They can copy pretty much like for like the aerodynamics, which is a big part of a car on top. And obviously they're powering that with a Mercedes engine as well. But there's a lot that kind of goes underneath the kind of bodywork of a car that Racing Point would have no idea what Mercedes do unless there is a technical link and they have unofficially become a Mercedes B team. That's probably a very interesting point to kind of look a little bit closer at, but they're aero packages, but probably the reason why, probably the reason why Racing Point get away with looking like the Mercedes is there is a lot more to construct in a Formula One car than just the aero package, however identical it looks on there. Okay, hi to the F1 Club in chat. Welcome for coming along. Obviously joined us in the live F1 weekly news show yesterday, so make sure you check out Joe as well, his Q&A, and I'm sure he will have some great race content over the weekend as we go. Ali's buzzing for the race. I think, yeah, absolutely. I think this sets us up for a really interesting race. It might just be a boring Mercedes 1-2, but I am hoping that, you know, once lights out, F1 is unpredictable. Maybe a bit of drama into turn one, maybe some tyre drama, mechanical issues, who knows? But that Mercedes it does look menacingly reliable and quick. You have all so much more together than I do. Just dropped a reaction video and I'm way more all over the place. Well, it's only your first time, mate, isn't it? So we all take learning in terms of this, and it's been a few. I had cheat of practicing in the 2019 season for this one. Why don't Ferrari copy their 79 title winning car? If Racing Point can copy the car, why can't they? Well, they can, but I'm pretty sure their 1979 race winning car wouldn't be quick at all. But arguably, would it be quicker than this Ferrari? Oh, God, it really was terrible there. Got to say, Latifi looked rapid today. I think that's a bit in tongue-in-cheek by Fergus. Yeah, George Russell does look mega in that Williams. He does look like the hype around George Russell is real. I can definitely see him. He was very close to getting into Q2 in Hungary last year. It's going to be interesting. That's obviously race 3 at the end of this kind of first batch of triple header races. Can he get into a race there? And also next week, will he be able to get into Q2? But George Russell, very close. But Nicholas Latifi, unfortunately, he did look quite far. Yeah, he looked a bit a duck out of water for the time being. Yet Sam O'Gara talking about, I mean, guys, if you want race weekend to kind of come back properly, you've already had an F3 race today, which I believe Oscar Piastri came first in as well. F2 race should be on now, or at least be kind of beginning to start. Then you got both the F3 and F2 sprint races tomorrow morning before the F1 race. And also you've got IndyCar tonight, if that kind of takes your fancy. And it will certainly be an interesting one. I think it's a road course today, so that'll be an interesting one to certainly give a watch. Ferrari have brought it upon themselves. They should have signed #Lord Mahavir. Well, we've got to get the Lord himself in the chat, surely, Josh, at some point in that fact. I think a lot of this is going to be... Oh, dear. Ferrari, they don't make it easy on themselves, do they? I mean, they had all that engine problem at the back end of last year. I suppose a lot of people might be wanting to draw links with the new fuel sensors. Ferrari's main advantage last year was in the straight line speeds, and with the added extra fuel sensor, is that partly due to the reason why Ferrari aren't as quick this year and the Ferrari powered cars didn't look quick at all? That might be just me speculating, and probably unfair to say on that front without knowing too much about it, but I certainly think that probably does go from there. Prakar Patel, Norris for the podium. Well, I'll throw that into the chat, actually. Do you genuinely think McLaren can challenge for a podium? To me, it is the podium. If all goes without incident, it's some combination of Verstappen, Hamilton, and Valtteri Bottas. I can't really see any other of the 3 cars getting there. A better question would probably be, would Lando Norris be able to beat Albon and Sergio Perez to beat Alexander Albon on pace? It's a really big time for Alexander Albon because, you know, he was consistent at the back end of last year. But for me, this is a real big opportunity to prove himself. He's already going to beat the Ferraris. But if he doesn't beat those kind of Racing Points and McLarens in the race, that is not going to look too good against himself. Swaroop Chile, wow, the rise of the midfield. Racing Point, McLaren, Renault, all showing pace. We are in for a cracking race. I think we absolutely are. If Mercedes could just kind of sandbag a little bit and get closer to the field, I think we've got an absolutely fantastic race on our hands. And the midfield for me, I think I said it in our kind of season preview with Aldas last week on the F1 Worldwide podcast, that the midfield for me is the most exciting bit about this season. And that qualifying session for me just makes it even more. You know, Norris, Perez, Ricciardo, all up there in Q3. Ocon was taking a little bit of time to get there, but I expect him to kind of probably show some race pace as well. Sainz is obviously still in and around them. We know how good he was in the races last year. Ferrari now drop into that midfield. How will they be able to race? Because talking to Will Earl from the FP1 podcast, we did a kind of more aerodynamics, or the art of aerodynamics, on one of our F1 Worldwides. And one of the things he said is the cars at the front design their aerodynamics to run at the front of the field and not to run in kind of too much traffic, where the midfield cars, obviously their aerodynamics are designed to run a little bit easier in dirty air and traffic. So will the Ferrari not being at the front I guess, could their car be even worse? Could we actually see Ferrari struggle to score any points tomorrow? I mean, I think they're still being the points, but I certainly can see some midfield teams finishing ahead of them. That's for sure. Oh, is the outside line in here? Okay, Ash from the outside line, welcome to the chat as well. Another great kind of YouTube channel. If you kind of enjoy kind of looking at old F1 games, he is running a series with Jean Alesi, kind of bringing justice for Jean Alesi. Jean Alesi is one of those drivers who never seem to be at the right car at the right time, but hugely talented. But an entertaining series, that for sure. But I think Norris has done well with his one-lap pace, but I think McLaren will drop back over the race. Merck and Red Bull, top 4 for me. Yeah, I think that's probably the natural bet. The only one that is going to be, can Sergio Perez beat Alexander Albon? I think that's going to be the really close one for me. Albon will need to probably get ahead of Norris early doors on those soft compounds. And it's going to be interesting to see where Max can maintain his position on those mediums. If he can maintain third and kind of manage the gap with the Mercedes not too bad, then that certainly would be there. Liam talks up on he's like Stefan Bedoff. Well, Stefan Bedoff, unfortunately, was a very sad, a very talented driver in the 80s, but sadly crashing in the, Spa 1,000 kilometers in 1985 and lost his life. And luckily, nowadays, it's a very rarity that we lose top talents to car accidents on there. But yeah, Stefan Bedoff, definitely a very good driver to bring up, Liam. F2 is live for anyone who wants to kind of watch that. I've got it in the background with the starting grid, but I've got it recorded to watch properly. Guan Yu Zhao obviously starting pole in that race. And a big shot from Felipe Drogovic in the MP Motorsport actually getting P2. That was a great qualifying from him, getting promoted from F3 last year. But Zhao, I would expect to do well in that race because he's a guy who's got a load of backing, Chinese background as well, but he also is a super talented driver. He will be knocking on that door for that Renault seat. I have no doubt about that. I'm getting Vettel out of my fantasy team. You might want to hold on to Vettel for Hungary now that you've got him in terms of fantasy-wise, just because his price might boost up when Ferrari get upgrades and people might also go from there. So afraid to watch. Last one I watched live was Spa. Can't bring myself to watch again. Rocks, obviously, yes, Spa was an awful weekend for all us motorsport fans, and obviously tragically losing Antoine Hubert. What a talent he was, and sad to see that we never kind of will see what his career will develop to be. But I'm sure, it'll be a good race, and Austria tends to be a little bit kind of less contact zone, shall we say. Turn 3 is really kind of the impact zone. But yeah, any questions in terms of qualifying? Any things you want me to answer about qualifying? Any thoughts ahead of the race tomorrow? Any thoughts ahead of the race tomorrow? Who do you think the kind of strategy is going to work for Red Bull? Who do you think is going to finish best of the rest? I think I've seen a lot of people with the McLaren wise not thinking their race pace is going to drop off, but do you think it will drop off quite a lot? Can you see George making up positions and moving forward? That is an interesting one because he's shown that he can compete with those back end fields there, and that Haas car doesn't look quickly. I can't see George Russell competing for any points this weekend, but I definitely can see him. He has potential to move ahead of the Haas. Sorry, Katie, if you're still in the chat with Kevin Magnussen and Roman Grosjean. I do, obviously, it doesn't look like necessarily the Haas have found too many problems, and those Ferrari-powered cars don't necessarily look great. Do you think McLaren will get a podium? Jake Davis with that one. I don't. I don't think they will. They would have to have like some drama at the front of the field with the Mercedes and Verstappen to have a chance to kind of get on the podium. So I can't see it in a clean race, them finishing on the podium on merit. Do you think Grosjean can get a podium, Sam O'Gara? No. But it'd be interesting to see where Haas are. Will their race pace, have they figured out their big issue last year was getting temperature into the tyres to kind of perform in the optimal window? And I don't think they've really looked like they fixed that, but it'll be them. Rox, honest question about Quali. Where did Gasly come from today? That was a shocker. Yeah, actually, because the Alpha Tauris haven't looked quick at all, but that was a pretty good lap from Pierre Gasly to get into P12. He's probably not a bad one to look at in maybe an outside shot getting into the points, because, well, I recommended in fantasy this week that don't go for the Alpha Tauris of Gasly and Kvyat because they'll be pretty close. And obviously Gasly was 12th and Kvyat was 13th. And you're not sure which way it would have been. But I can definitely see Gasly getting into the points. And it was a pretty good qualifying lap. Liam talks F1. Who will finish better, Russell or Ocon? Ocon, easy on that. The Renault's a much better car than the Williams. As much as I've George Russell, I can't see him getting anything too much out of that. Haven't seen how many points I've got in fantasy yet, but obviously don't pay too much attention. From my experience with the fantasy app, with their live updates, it's a little bit rubbish because they change all thing. At one point after qualifying last year, everyone had minus points apart from Carlos Sainz, who had 5 points. So unless they've sorted those teething problems, it might be a little bit dodgy. I'm going to watch F2. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the F2 race, Sam. Hope you have a good one. Thanks for coming into the chat. Tab 11. When will points be live in fantasy? Not sure on that one. I genuinely tend to not pay attention to the points in fantasy. You could probably pay attention to qualifying ones maybe later this evening, maybe about 8 o'clock will probably be a good shout on that front. And definitely not until the Monday to pay attention to any final scores from the weekend. Are Ferrari in trouble? How much difference can one upgrade make? Well, the upgrade sounds like a whole change of philosophy, so I don't know, but I'm pretty sure at this early stage, you can just pretty much write off the 2020 season for Ferrari. In what we don't know how long this season will be, you can't afford to start slow or be anything. I would be massively surprised if Ferrari, I think they've conceded second in the constructors as well. This upgrade would need to be mega in Hungary and completely change their car to go from there. Pretty good points for your team's rocks with your own calculation, so that should be good. Thank you for your F1 fantasy content. Really cool. No problem at all, Tab. Glad you enjoy the fantasy content. We certainly enjoy playing the fantasy game, and it just adds a little bit more, I think, to the F1 weekends, because it's what it has for me an advantage over fantasy football. You can see all the action in one place. You don't have to switch between games and pay attention to everyone and where their form is. F1, you watch the races, and you can make kind of laps on there. It is the formation lap. No, it looks like the actual lap, and it looks like Callum Ilott has had a great start. Callum Ilott is leading the F2 race. Sorry if anyone wanted to go from that. Felipe Drogovic has dropped back and looks like he is dropping back, but yes, Ilott is ahead of Zhao, but Zhao looks like no, Ilott is ahead of Zhao, so well done. Callum Ilott is a sneaky one. Sorry for that, looking over there. Like I said, the F2 is in the background on that front. But yes, F2 is definitely, that is going to be an exciting one. One of the Premers is up there. I wonder if that is Mick Schumacher now currently running in P3. That would be interesting. Looks like it's a great race. If you don't already watch F2, I highly recommend that you do that. Is Latifi just having teething problems, or is he out of his depth? My gut feeling is Latifi is out of his depth. He was in F2, GP2 a long time, and his pace hasn't really said anything. But the poor guy has had one of the kind of most struggling starts. He's had one of the most kind of difficult starts to an F1 career ever. So maybe we kind of need to watch a few races before we can start reserving any judgment on Nicholas Latifi. I still can't believe what Norris did. Awesome job. It was a fantastic qualifying lap from Norris, but we also know that Lando Norris was absolutely superb in qualifying last year. He beat Carlos Sainz 11-10. He's obviously a more experienced teammate last year in 2019, so he was always probably going to do well. Double yellow flags on the first lap. Oh, interesting. I'll catch that. Like I said, it's in the background, so I'm not watching that. Gotto is out and Daruvla is out. Very interesting. Look, we're getting live updates from the F2 race as well from here. But anyway, I think I'll throw it to the floor. If there are any other questions, as I think a lot of people's attention is now switching to the F2 race. If there's any other questions, please drop them in the chat. I'm happy to answer on qualifying on there. If not, my thoughts rounding off tomorrow, I'm still going to back a Max Verstappen win. I'm going to say that he's going to find something out of somewhere to win the race, with Hamilton second and Valtteri Bottas P3. I'm going to stick with my initial prediction and go exciting there. Best of the rest, I'm going to back Sergio Perez to finish ahead of the McLarens. And I'm also going to say that Alexander Albon will finish P4. I think it will be a Mercedes and Red Bull top 4 in some form of order. But anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. It's been great having so many people in chat. That's definitely like the busiest it's been in chat for a long while. So I hope you guys enjoy the F2, which it looks like a lot of you are watching. It looks like Zhao has just retaken the lead, so that's good from there. Ashley's podium is Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and Alexander Albon, going for a double Red Bull podium, and with Valtteri Bottas, well, not making pole into even a podium. That would be a thing. Vettel will DNF lap 37. That's a very good go from there. Jerusalem went spinning, another Red Bull spinning by Mike. See you later, Liam. Go from there. Oh, I do apologise. Rocks on that front. But guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for joining Quali live stream. Remember, after the race tomorrow, we will be live again. Hope you guys kind of enjoy these kind of live reactions after. Thank you so much for everyone who's spoken in chat and who's kind of given questions in chat. It's fantastic. The F1 is back. Qualifying is back. I've massively enjoyed it. I hope you have too. For now, you guys, you F1 fans, keep racing.